Hey, welcome to the Sustainable Alaska podcast. I'm Tandy, and Kelly's here with me again today. And we have a really good show planned. Last week, Kelly got to deal with a little bit of I don't know, is it a scare? Is that what you call it? Like, what do you call it? A wake up?
Yeah. Yeah, it's always that way. It's always just a little bit of we have everything organized.
Yep. So the tsunami warning came to you. And so we thought today we'd talk a little bit about what disaster preparedness looks like specific to Alaskans, specific to homesteaders with critters and feed and all the different components of that. So it's a whole lot different when you just need to, and I'm not minimizing if you live in the city and have one cat at all, but it's a lot different when you're looking at multiple animals and your whole livelihood there. So we're going to talk about that, but first we get to talk about what's going on our farm. So Kelly, what's happening in Kodiak these days?
We have sun, which is you'd think like, oh, it's summer, but we have struggled the last 2 years to have nice summers at all. Like 1 week of nice weather, and then it feels like it turns. And I don't know about how it is on the mainland, but in Kodiak, there's a shift in the wind, and you just know that it's fall. Like it just hits one day, and you're like, oh no. And so we are having actual summer this year, which is really nice. We still have a lot of, mud everywhere, but we're chugging along with the sun. I make a lot of goat milk ice cream, and so that meant I processed over 10 gallons of ice cream this morning in the dairy, and so they're churning it out right now down in the kitchen. And so the farm shop stays busy. We do all direct sales. So it gets a little bit busy with a lot of ice cream, but it's good. I mean, I'm happy to make a lot of ice cream. And now that we have Maggie online, I was trying to figure out exactly how many gallons of milk I'm getting. About 18 to 20 gallons right now a day. So that's a lot.
Day.
That's a lot between goats and cow and all of that. And we're feeding, 20 baby goats. So I mean it's going out the door still, but all of a sudden like I'm processing a lot more milk. So that's
A
fun.
lot of milk. And cows, I feel like cows exponentially explode your milk production, whereas, one or two goats, it's still you're still getting a lot of milk, but then a
Yeah.
cow comes on with her, 4 or 5 gallons a day, and it's like, blah.
I mean, truly a different animal. When I added the cow, it rocked my world a little bit. And I'm now fully addicted to it. But yeah, it's a switch for sure.
That's fun. So ice cream on your farm, and now we're all wishing we were your neighbor on Kodiak.
That's
But there's
right.
talking about this mass exodus from the valley to Kodiak. We're all going to move there. We're all going to be a neighbor.
Take a little tour. Or I'll come and visit you sometime and I'll just do a little shipment and we'll just bring ice cream and you can have you pick and goat milk ice cream or something.
There you go. That sounds good.
All right,
Oh,
what's
that's
going
funny.
on with you guys?
So, UPIC starts on Wednesday. So obviously by the time this airs, we will have been well into UPIC. But I don't know if I mentioned this last week, but I feel like UPIC it's like the beginning of the best party of the season because it's 6 weeks. So our season is so short. We do all this work so that we can sell food for 6 weeks. And so it's a lot crammed into a short time. But it's so fun. And so this week it's Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday that we're open, and then who knows in the coming weeks. But um, so we're gearing up for that. We actually have birds getting into our Saskatoons, so we have to net those a little bit earlier than we usually do. So we have some friends over this afternoon that are coming to help us with that netting, and it's all those pieces of summer that happen every year that make it feel like I'm starting to feel like, wow, summer's really ticking along. I feel like we're working towards wrapping it up, and we're not, but we're at the tail. We've started what brings in the end, I guess. And so I'm kind of like you. It's like I just want a little bit more summer. So but but we're doing fun stuff. I just did my first ferment a few days ago, so that's fun. So it's ready and in the fridge, and it's just a half gallon. So it was just a small batch, but it was stuff that was ready. It needed to be taken care of. Um, so yeah, it's just all the things to get ready for to gear up for when it gets really busy here on the farm.
Right, right. Isn't it interesting that we, especially in Alaska, we really do. Like we have these, it's just such a short window, but our days are doubled, with all the light. But what do we, it's a kind of a blur that you do. You just prep for it and then you have to just go.
Yep. Yep. And go and go and go and don't stop. They have
Right.
they have that in a song. It says something about don't stop till the sun goes down. And every time I hear that, I have to chuckle. I'm like, well, that's kind of what we do, but it's not a good thing. It's not healthy right now.
Isn't it's really, oh, it's a lot, but
But it's good.
it
It's
is.
lovely. And
Yeah.
like we're doing fun stuff. My daughter's coming over on Thursday and we're going to make more of our Ivan chai, which is the fermented fireweed tea. And I like to put the flowers in it. The first batch we did was before it was blooming. So we'll pick a bunch with the blooms now. And so it's just I just love all those fun Alaska things that we get to do and letting Alaska provide for us, which is an incredible it feels like an honor. Like all of it's all here. We just have to figure out what it is and how to best utilize it. And God's provided. God provided, Alaska has done its thing. Now our job is to be good stewards. So
Right. That's right.
fun.
Absolutely. That's fun. Oh,
So
good.
all good things.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit. Tell us your story. So because most of us on the mainland are not having to worry about tsunamis. Most of us are pretty far. I mean, there are some coastal people, but for the most part, tsunamis aren't a thing. But tell us what's going on. What was happening?
So it was last week, a regular day, honestly beautiful day, and your all of our phones lit up at the same time. So it's so interesting depending on where you're at. And I only had a few people by me, but if you're in a grocery store or anything like that, everybody gets there was an earthquake. And so about 50 miles south of Sandpoint, there was an earthquake, 7.2 magnitude. And immediately that caught my ear just because that's larger. It's larger to Sandpoint, which is closer to us than and then for us it's the tsunami
Mhm.
warning. And in Kodiak, no matter where you go, we have our tsunami alert. Oh, it was last Wednesday. That's when it was because it was actually getting close to 2 p.m. when is our test period every week at 2 p.m. the
Oh,
tsunami
how
alarms.
funny.
Yeah. So I'm waiting for the tsunami alarm and I'm down at the shop, and I'm like, is this real? And so we're all, looking, trying to figure out if it was real or not. Well, indeed it was, but no alarms are going off. And I have my little farm crew that's there and I'm like, well, go collect all the eggs. And then I stopped for a second and I was like, I called my lady Jody. She helps with the chickens. Like she's grown that. I just give her free reign over the chickens. And I was like, Jody, do we have any chickens that aren't at sea level? And she was like, No, we don't. And I was like, okay. And so, I told her, I was like, go collect all of the eggs. And we sat there for a little bit longer. And I was like, go ahead. I had 2 goats down at sea level. So our farm shop and our barn is right at sea level. We walk right over to the ocean. I see it from my house. My house is about 80 feet. So all in all, we're kind of safe. In the top of the farm, so we're in 2 spots. We go up a 16% grade hill, and that's where the dairy is up on the top of the hill where it's safe. And, now that primarily all the animals except the chickens, which is just one of those things we had planned all these other things that are up here. So I stand there for a second. I'm like, oh, let's move the chickens. And so I was like, the alarm is not going off yet. So we're good. Like we have not gotten the official, like when the wave's going to hit Kodiak, which you get the time it's going to hit. And so we all start chasing chickens, which if you know me well, I'm terrified of chickens. I've gotten so much better, but not my favorite thing. But it doesn't matter at this point. So there are 4 of us in there grabbing every bird that's squawking, putting them into kennels, getting them into the back of the truck. And right as there was one left, and I was like, I'm going to try and get this chicken. I had sent the crew up to put him, and I had an empty coop that's right behind my house. We had
Oh,
sent
nice.
chickens we were set. We could have them, and the alarm started going off. So I'm down here like running after a dumb chicken. And then I just told her, I said, you're done. Like if the wave hits, you're done. I'm leaving you. So anyway, so then we just have to wait to see if the wave is going to hit. And we've now been part of quite a few tsunami warnings. I've never been part of a wave that's hit, but back in 64 there was, and we have all of the historic pictures. So we're all still very, respectful of
Sure, of
has
course.
potential to happen. So that's that's where we were at. And I don't know how, where we want to go. There's just a host of different things, but that's when a guy sent you a message and I was like, huh, we all have our things, whether it be the fires that are up on the mainland, we do have the earthquakes that come, the flooding, this like Alaska has extreme weather, and we are still then disconnected from the rest of the lower 48. There is a gap between us. And so, for us, we could, if the boats don't come and the planes don't fly, we're disconnected. But truly, that's a lot of Alaska, really pretty disconnected. So that's what got me thinking about this.
And I feel like maybe this is wrong, but so Alaska itself is disconnected just because it's got to get here by boat, plane, or through another country via truck. Um, but you guys, I feel like, are even a little bit more disconnected just because you're a little island all on your own. So, but you're right. There's all sorts of things that can happen, and I guess I just want to say we're not trying to be like doom and gloom, and I have no idea what's going to happen in the world or anything. But it really is good to think ahead, especially when it isn't just you and some family pictures and again, I'm not minimizing it, but we've got livestock that we need to be thinking about. And what are you going to do in the case of an earthquake that knocks out the power for 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours, or yeah, there's lots of different things that can happen. So I think it's a great idea, and I think it's really good to kind of, it's fun to hear your thought process. I had to chuckle when you said grab the eggs, because I have to know, like, what was your I don't know what my thought would be, but why the eggs? Like, why was that the thought?
So it's not uncommon to have food shortages here. Like eggs are that here. Like we at our farm shop sell our eggs for $12 a dozen, and we can't keep them in stock. I mean, it's just, and we are not the most expensive at all. It's very common for them to not be in the grocery. Like eggs are more than gold here. And so, and that's it, further with the chickens. Again, I have my top three. And it's one of the things that if I'm teaching kids, especially, I have my top three: chickens, rabbits, and goats. They're my top three. I feel like you're sustainable. So those chickens are food that keeps giving. I talk a lot about, we have a living larder that, people are like, how are you prepared? I am an aspiring canner, but I am not a good canner. Like I want to can everything. I want that to be my life. But then I look around and I'm like, but I have a living larder that I need to keep alive. And so whether that be our milk, and then we have, the meat side, and then like the egg side. And so that was my thought process with the eggs and the
That
chicken.
makes sense. And then after you think, well, I guess if we're gonna anything's gonna happen, we need the chickens too.
That was just it. I was like, we're gonna run out of egg. Like, it's so ridiculous. But I was like, we need at least one, and we have three different groups of chickens, so we've done our best to make sure that if there is something that happens to one, honestly, dogs or eagle, they're our biggest predator. And I had one situation where I had 100 birds all in a greenhouse over like winter, and a dog busted through and killed 98 of them overnight.
Hmm.
And that was the last time I put all of my my eggs in one basket, literally. Like my
Yeah.
son came over just white as a ghost and he's like, "Mom, all the chickens are dead." I was like, and he's, this young kid. I'm like, "No, they're not, Gray. Like, what are you talking about?" And I go over and truly the dogs had done it for sport. They just grabbed them and went. They just took them all out. So anyway, that's where we learned to split up the birds. And I was like, at least we'll have one grouping of chickens alive.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, that's so it just is it's sickening in so many ways because I mean, the animals are gone. They're not usable. Nobody got anything out of it. We had a raven grab a couple of our chickens when they were young, and it was super frustrating. But I have a lot of respect for the raven because at least it ate the whole dang thing. Like he left just a couple little pieces of the wing, and I'm not. I was still mad, but at least he ate it. Like he fed himself or fed his family, or he did something with this chicken other than just kill it and waste it. So that's just kind of the circle of life.
Right. That's exactly right. For sure. Yep.
So back to the idea of disaster preparedness. Um, and it doesn't, we don't, I think it might be easier to talk about rather than like specific scenarios, but let's talk about kind of how to think ahead. So I know it's hard for me to think ahead, but when something happens, then I kind of make all the mistakes and then I'm able to think back and go, oh, I didn't think I missed this, or I'm glad I thought of that. It's kind of amazing the things that you do think of that make a whole lot of sense in the moment and you're like, wow, that was really smart. But what would like you wake up, you're asleep and something has come up. What are some things that you would actually recommend that people do in advance? So what are some things to be thinking about ahead of time specific to your homestead?
Yeah. And I think that that's a big, like that's why we have a homestead, right? Like we
Mhm.
are trying to be prepared. That's overall, like we are not scared. We want to be prepared. And there's a host of different things, that can happen. Water is always one of my first thoughts, and so I make sure the water's filled in all of the spaces. But then I also have to take a deep breath and I'm like, yes, but I can heat water. We actually a few years ago went for it and got a wood cook stove. And
Mm.
it's an old, 19, I don't know, it's an old wood cook stove, but we can heat and we can have things without any electricity. Do we use that stove? No, not all the time, just for fun. The boys love to use it, but we have it. So if we needed to boil water, because one thing we do know, Kodiak it's a temperate rainforest. We're going to get water. So we need enough to get us through. And then, and at one point, when we had the volcano had erupted, and then ashfall, and then that was a big concern on the mainland here recently. This volcano is going to erupt. And what did they say? Have how many weeks of food, available for you? And I
Yeah,
had even had the
how
thought,
much, but
right. I was like, okay, so I'm gonna, I thought, okay, I have a shed and I could move all these animals into this shed if need be. So where am I going to put animals? And are animals in a place? And this is something to think about. Are animals in a place? And are your animals in a place? Are they catchable? Are they movable? What time have you spent with them? And that's the joy of a small scale farm. We are connected with our livestock. We do know them, but don't underestimate the importance of time spent with them just in the like I can open a gate and all my little baby goats are going to follow me. I can put halters on every single one of the animals that I have. Do I need to be able to get on a horse and load the mule down? Yep, I do. And I have a thing that I could do that if need be. So that's another one that I look at. And then are the most important animals where they need to be? Like I'll be honest, if something happened today, I'd grab Ellie and Ellie Mae the cow and Maggie the cow. They're my like number ones with the chickens. And then I'd go to, 3 or 4 goats. So have your most important and then work your way down from them. If you only have a certain amount of time before something happens, you just need to know. And then I think though, golly, not to be all over the place and go back, but at one point we had a tsunami warning and my sons were over on Woody Island with the cattle and we're on this island and I'm looking across like, I can't believe my boys aren't with me. We can't go get our boys. But it was really that I need to just pray and give this to God because nothing happens without him knowing and his infinite plan. So to walk forward in that peace, so not to be all helter skelter. We had another windstorm and it was so crazy and chaotic that I wanted to just be crazy and chaotic. And so it's the, breathe, pray
yeah,
continually, and then
yes, yes.
act logically, that's the other part.
So one of the things when you brought this up, I started thinking about because it, different situations call for something different. So you brought up knowing which animals are, the hierarchy or whatever. So what I was thinking about, what came to my mind was, we have a baby milk cow. She's just a baby. Um, so we have her, and then we have chickens, and we have turkeys. That's what we have. So, what I thought was, what do I have feed stocked up for that I can feed for the long term? Um, and I don't even know if I don't know if that's a right line of thinking, but in the dead of winter, I can't load up a round bale in the back of my Jeep and haul Mabel, but I can grab some chickens and some bags of feed if I need to. And and that, to me, that just seems more logical. I don't want to leave Mabel behind. Like, and I don't even know what the scenario would be, but it's just thinking, because I think even if you haven't thought through a specific scenario, if you've thought through things like this, like which animals would I take or whatever, then at least you've kind of got that background so that when something does happen, you've already had a little bit of that logic to think through. But I think, like you said with your chicken, you're like, I tried, but you're not listening. So you're gonna have to learn to swim.
Exactly.
But it's a tough thing. Um, what do you recommend? So water is a big one. You're right about that. And especially for us in the winter, everything is frozen. So we have wetlands everywhere. So in the spring, summer, and after breakup, and then summer and fall, we can get buckets of water out of a swamp if we need to for the animal, for the animals to drink. But you know, especially in the winter, like are there solutions for water? I mean, other than melting snow, but golly, it takes you get a big 5 gallon container and put it on the wood stove, and it makes about a quart of water.
Right. We had a winter that was really hard. And so we have cattle over on Woody Island and they're fully self-sustainable at this point. We don't have to touch them and they make meat for us. However, we got to a point and it was cold. It was cold and Kodiak doesn't normally get this cold. Like last winter, I had sorry, everyone on the mainland. I had 2 4-day periods where I had frozen water.
Ugh,
That was it. Like
that's
I
not
could
even
have left the
Alaskan,
hoses
girl.
out. I mean, like I know it was something. Again, I'm very sorry. But we have had the winters where I'm going to Woody and I cannot find water. And I can't get to water on the lake. And I'm looking at these 35 cows and I'm like, I don't know what to do. I cannot get you water. And there's, historical records that may be in the middle of the island. There's a spring that but I've never found that. Interesting animal, like, and this is another thing. Animals do want to live. And there's a Kodiak variety. I think that there is a big lake variety. There are animals that you can begin to make resilient in the area that you are living, right? So these cattle lived and thrived. I don't know where they got water. When I do research, they ate snow. They shut their body, they shut their body down in a way. They dug down. Again, they didn't have grass. And I was like, I'm bringing them a couple of bales of hay, but that's not enough. They dug, they got what they needed. We didn't lose one cow or calf that whole winter. But we have a resilient cow to the area that we are in. So that's one of the things that you have to say, could you have the amount of animals that I have? Probably not over here. So if I'm looking at Maggie, yep, I'm probably gonna just take the horrible amount of time it takes to melt that water for her. The goats, maybe a little bit, but there comes a point where I'm like, I'm gonna have to turn you out, and we're gonna have to do our best here. And again, um, but I thought that was really interesting with the cattle. That here we had what in other places it probably would have been neglectful. And I'm over here like, I don't have another option, so here we go, guys, and it worked.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And if you think about, so to bring it back to winter, let's say the power goes out for, an extended period of time, couple weeks. So, especially here where we are, because we have frozen water occasionally. Just kidding. It's, for like several months.
Yep.
But I think remembering that we're all in survival mode. So it's not like I'm sitting in my nice warm house and everything is fresh and wonderful and good, and my poor cow is suffering. Um, she's having to learn to eat snow, and we're having to learn to be packing tons of snow in to get, water and filter water for ourselves too. It's not like everywhere else is doing great and your animals are, suffering. It's a matter of everybody kind of trying to work together and just to make sure we just had an earthquake.
Nuh-uh.
We did.
Of
Sorry.
all the times to have a little earthquake.
It wasn't very big, but I was trying to ignore it for a second, and then I was like, nope.
An earthquake.
That's
That's
funny.
awesome. Oh,
It was just a little one. Um, uh, so I think remembering that too, it's and figuring out, like you said, you do the very, very, very best you can. So do you stock up a ton on feed and stuff? Well, I mean, and it's probably different for you because, well, it's not a lot different. I mean, we personally don't have a place to store it. So our hay is paid for sitting in a barn in Point McKenzie, and we bring over what we need, but it's ours and um, so is that, I mean, I guess that's kind of preparedness too, right?
it is. And unfortunately, Kodiak is so tricky when it comes to feed and all those things. So I buy containers at a time. And, yes, unfortunately, in some cases, we are really prepared. I think that that has its own set of challenges because, yes, to be feed prepared, to be hay prepared, that also then means I have to try and keep all that feed and hay at a usable point for a longer period of time. And so that becomes it's a challenge I have every day. Like I had a pallet of feed that had gotten wet on the side. So we just got done going through and I'm throwing away bags of feed and we're putting it in trash containers to try and preserve what we have. And I'm like, oh, this is like, I just wasted a bunch of money to try and be prepared, and so there's always the drawback, to that. We have like a Connex kind of container that I'm able to put my hay in. And there are a couple little spots that I know I'm going to lose a couple of bales because there's just tiny, tiny leaks in that. And so I think, there are two parts of that. So yes, we are feed prepared, but then it's also in the time of plenty. It is to not say, wow, look at the, like it's our 6 weeks of summer. Look at all these funds that we have coming in. But then it's to really plan ahead and allocate the finances needed and then prioritize where that needs to go. And so for myself, I know I'm going to make sure and have that second container of hay ordered coming because I've had times where it's been a month late because that can't get here, because of the weather so poor. So where can I put other hay, to store in the winter and to be able to have, a backup plan. And then all in all, to know there's the backup plan, then there's the survival plan. What animals will I have to cull to make sure that I can survive? So if we're getting into a survival situation, and that's the guts that it takes, that's that like grit of a homesteader that you have to have to make it, to know, that there are sometimes you want everything to live, but at the end of the day, people are our first priority. And so
That's
we
right.
want to keep people alive. And so what are you going to have to do to make sure that happens?
And it's not just your immediate people. I think that's something that isn't as common, I think, as it used to be. But we live every around us, everyone has a pretty decent amount of acreage. So, but we do have neighbors, and I know my neighbors. And if I need to cull some chickens because we can't feed them or they're freezing or can't get them water, whatever the situation may be, um I'm not just thinking about I'll feed my family first and make sure we're taken care of, but I we need to be thinking about our community. You know, I have an elderly neighbor that's a widow. I need to be thinking about what is she, of course, she's set up better than I am because she's off grid. So, so she's got it made. But, you know, be thinking about what you can do as a community for disaster preparedness. And this all comes back to the whole reason we started this expo to begin with is because when I was thinking about, you know, there's this whole self-reliance idea, which there's some serious good to that. I think there's a lot of it says a lot about a person when they want to support themselves. That's a good thing. But I think unless, especially in Alaska, we've got to take it one step further and be more community sufficient, not self-sufficient, but community sufficient. And what does that look like? And I think personally think a portion of disaster preparedness is not only knowing what my strengths and limitations are, but knowing what my neighbor's strengths and limitations are and how we can work together to get through this really hard time. I think that's a that's just really important no matter what you're facing.
I agree. And don't you think it's neat when you can find each other's strengths and then you make those connections. And again, that's exactly what that homestead, you have folks who are like, oh, we live close together. We're neighbors, or someone that's like, I am really good at say whatever it is, and oh, that's not my strength. And then being able to make like I am a struggling gardener, but man, I have some friends down the road that just do amazing at that. So I am happy to trade you milk for, these plant starts or kombucha or whatever it is, that you're making that I cannot and then like I don't need to be good at everything. What a relief that is, right? To say I don't have to, I'm a homesteader, I'm self-sustainable, whatever, but I don't have to know everything. Um,
Right.
make there are strategic friendships that are really great to have, and then you are right, we have a responsibility to our neighbors. you
Yeah.
know the God, I think, puts us in folks' lives for a reason, and to be able to say, you know what, I understand that I have this responsibility. We had a few years ago when the government shutdown was for a while, and we have a large Coast Guard community, and they were working and not making any money at all. And it got to a point, that families didn't have money for food, and they're still, they have to work. And we put up a post and we just said, hey, we have cattle. If we'll have a big day if need be. None of these are more important than all of you. And so if you can't afford it, and I'm a person of faith. I think that God likes that. I think that's a good thing. Not that like I'm not like a works are going to save you, but I do believe that like you show your faith through the works that you do, and God gives us hands to be able to to use for other people. So uh
Right. And it just feels better. It
it
just we're not an island. We weren't created to be an island um when we have community. One thing that I can think of when I was thinking about who my neighbors are and how we can build community in this idea. And my neighbor has quite a bit of acreage and she has a big swampy area, but she's got a lot of grassy area, like swampy grassy area. She could feed my cow in a way that I can't because ours is all commercial orchard. I don't have a lot of grassy stuff. So it doesn't even it wouldn't cost her a thing, but this is a way that we could all survive. So if I can take my cow over there, then, you know, assuming it's in a couple of years, my cow's giving milk, she's going to get milk, we're going to get milk. And I think it's just knowing the like we said the strengths from our people, but also being okay relying on someone else, going to someone and saying, listen, I have this milk cow, I want to keep milking it because of whatever's happening in the world. I can't, do you mind if I put her on your place? We'll share milk with you. And how cool is that? So
so that's
yeah,
so
yeah, that's
such a
fun.
yeah.
Well, I think this has been really good. I think we need to be thinking through, what if the power goes out for a long time? What if there's a tsunami? What if there's an earthquake and we can't get supplies? Something happens with the runways or something, or whatever happens and we can't bring in supplies. Uh and how we're gonna do that. One last thing I wanted to say is when we chose cow. I wanted just a plain Highland, and because they're made for cold. So the poor thing's not going to have to fight our weather because she's made for it, right? But we also we still wanted a milk cow, and I was really hoping for a polled cow. I didn't. I'm horns make me nervous, and they're so big and pointy, and I believe God gave animals horns for a reason, and so I hate to take them away. So we'll let we'll let just natural or unnatural, whatever selection do that. So when we got her, she's Highland Jersey mix. So she's going to give lots of good milk, but she definitely has Highland fur on her. And they also are a better forager. So that was what was going through my head was I don't need her to forage. I'm going to feed her. But she can get out and forage. She's going to be a little happier in the woods, if she enjoys foraging, if that's who she is, but also in a must situation, she's going to be able to survive a lot better. So that's the hope anyway.
It's
That was
such a good model to have. I remember I visited a dairy once, and it was an old gentleman. And I was like, wow, are these purebred goats? Like, do they have, like, are you paper? Do you do all that? And he's like, huh, does that, does that make their milk taste better? And I was like, ha ha, very funny. But it really got me thinking. He said, you need to make the best animal for where you're at, for the needs that you have. And that has really stuck with me. And it proves to your point, what a smart move. And really those mixed cattle like that, or even livestock, they're stealthy, they're stronger, they do better. And honestly, I think they have, I'm saying that I have two jerseys that are purebred jerseys. So like, understand what I'm saying here. I know, but I also know, like, I'm a little jealous of that in the best way possible, because you're setting yourself up for fewer problems than I potentially. There's a reason I get super nervous about these high producing Jersey cows, without a vet on the island. So
right.
it's such a good plan. And just continuing to think about, like, hopefully we never have these disasters, but to be prepared on all those fronts is so good.
It is. And I guess maybe at some point we should do a podcast on not disaster preparedness, but medical preparedness, because it doesn't take long, especially in chickens. One chicken gets coccidiosis or mites or whatever the case may be, and if you're not on top of it, it can go through a coop and just wipe you out. So we'll
Had that
definitely.
thought. I had that thought this week. I had a goat that broke. It's like they're doing parkour. Like, I mean, these are baby goats. I mean, like, it is. At the beginning, I would have been like, I'm the worst. And now I'm like, this is normal. Like, it's not my first broken leg, but I have like casting material. And I was like, this is what we're just gonna do. We're gonna put it, we're gonna cast it together. And somebody had
Oh,
said, oh, the vet told me we can't do this. And I was like, well, you can. I'm not a vet. So thankfully, like, and I don't have a vet, so I'm going to make my own choices. I mean, I have a vet far away, but there are situations that you still have to make your own choices and judgment calls. And yes, be on top of it. Like, I had the material. This isn't the first time it's happened. The first time it happened, I went for it out of desperation, and it worked. And so you make the best calls that you can with what you have available.
yes, you do. Because even here, we do have some vets, but they're busy, and the goats never break their legs at a convenient time.
Oh, they don't. No.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Well, Kelly, thank you very much. I'm glad the tsunami turned out to not be anything, but it sounds
Very
like had it been something, you would have still had eggs and chicken. So that's good.
right. And I still have all the chickens up here, and I realized our fence is not fantastic. So now I'm like, well, now I'm worried about the eagles because I have chickens like floating, but I'm like, but look at all that green grass they're loving and eating. And so anyway,
It's just a party to them. It's all for fun.
all right, it's been great.
All right. Thanks, Kelly.